Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. And I am meeting you once again with lecture 29 of Drama 2, that is modern drama. In today's lecture, we are going to talk about Henrik Ibsen's A Doll House. Well, you'll be surprised why are we going to talk about Henrik Ibsen's once again. So to remind you that we have successfully completed our 28 lectures of Drama 2 so far, and in our 28 lectures we have been able to cover 4 authors and 4 texts. Henrik Ibsen's Doll's House was the very first text that we covered. So these last 4 lectures, from lecture 29 till the 32nd, we are going to have a review session. So I repeat once again, from the very first till lecture 28, we have covered the significance of modern drama, the themes in modern drama, the reasons behind modern drama, and then the famous authors and the text produced in modern drama. However, in the last 4 lectures, starting from 29th till the 32nd, we are going to have a comprehensive review of all the items that we have covered so far, including 4 of these authors as well as their text. So, to start with our an overall review of the program, so to prepare you for your final assessment, we are today starting with an overview of A Doll's House that was written by Henrik Ibsen. So, let's start it and see what we have to start with. Well, the functions and characteristics of modern drama. We understand that modern drama is different from the traditional drama that has been streamlined from the Greek mythology, from the Greek time. Modern drama is different in its spirit because it mirrors the complex struggle of life. Now, what was this complex struggle made of? Although I will be touching upon these things again and again, but I want you to recall in your mind so you can understand how far you have been able to understand the functions and characteristics of this particular drama and the reasons behind that. So this drama is unique. This kind of drama, this era of drama, this time of drama is new in its nature, since it includes realism. It talks about the life. It takes the cinema goers and the audience beyond fantasies and idealism and make them watch and observe the life that they observe in their everyday routine. So it mirrors the complex struggle of life. Since it mirrors life, it mirrors reality, it has realism embedded in it. It does not talk about fantasies and idealism. It talks about what a common man goes through, what a layman goes through. And we understand that modern drama has been produced in the time when it was about the end of the First World War and the time when the Second World War was about to start. So it was not a very pleasant time for the people of that era. It was a time of complexities, struggles, chaos, disturbance, distortion, and everything was almost destroyed, whether they are family units or they are human emotions. So everything was almost at a standstill and was shabby, ugly, and painful. So in order to we understand that writers, and if we take the broader category of this, the artist, basically, they are kind of people who are very sensitive, and they feel and they absorb what they see and what they observe in the society outside, and what then they reflect is their reflection, their opinions on their observations. So when the writers of modern era, the sensitive writers of modern era who later on had taken stance of social reformers, observed this chaos and disturbance in the society, they definitely mirrored the same. So modern drama specifically mirrors the complex struggle of life. The inspiration is to seek truth, since it does not deal with idealism, fantasy, how the things should be. It talks about how things are, how things can potentially be. So it seeks the truth of life. Either to become part of the process or be left behind. Well, this particular aspect refers to the Irish War that was basically in the background of the 4 of the texts, almost 3 of the texts that we discussed, where we had 2 kind of parties, one who were the free staters, and the other who wanted to have combined and united country. Well, when I will move on to that part, I will discuss these things in detail. So people were categorized into parties, and since there were different opinions, there were different schools of thought, so they were divided into different categories. And that again resulted into the division of family units and later on division of human emotions. This is the social significance which differentiates modern dramatic art from art for art's sake. So the first 2 points that we discussed here, this very point is basically an extension of that. So far, starting from the Greek times of drama production, most of the drama production has been rendering its services to produce art for art's sake. It was to give pleasure, it was to seek pleasure, it was to admire the you see, the grandeur of a phenomenon, whether they are human being, their status, it's a social status, they are about kings and queens, they are about chivalry, they are about bravery, they are about all the adjectives that agreeable adjectives you can attach with a society or you can attach with personality. So most of the drama since Greek times dealt with the things which were basically part of an ideal life, an ideal society. So the drama of that time can well be understood, calling it art for art's sake. However, in modern era, since the time was altogether a contradiction, and we discussed that it's a time when drama was produced between 2 world wars, and life was not as beautiful as people might have dreamt or thought about. It was quite an ugly appearance of society. So the drama relates with the reality of life out there that a writer observes, and that is why this very social significance of drama makes it different from the drama that has been produced so far. So drama in the modern era produced not for art's sake, but art for life's sake. It is the dynamite which undermines superstition, shakes the social pillars, and prepares men and women for the reconstruction. Since drama produced in this time is purpose-oriented, it was to aware people, it was to let them understand what are the social evils that prevail in the society, what kind of consequences human life has to bear if they follow these evils, if they get into these evils. And by the way, what are those reasons which beget these evils? Since the purpose was to aware human being and eventually let them avoid the unpleasant consequences, it was to undermine superstition, all the social evils which were basically somewhere there were the reasons behind the distortion in the society, including the superstition, people's idle beliefs, and the social pillars, all the cliches, all the negative aspects associated with the beliefs in the society, and all the other things which were basically contributing into misguiding human life and taking it towards a road which was definitely not leading towards success. So to prepare the society, men and women, for the reconstruction, for the rehabilitation, to develop a kind of atmosphere, to develop a society where men and women can live their lives peacefully. So these were basically some of the very major functions and characteristics of modern drama that the modern drama writers always wanted to achieve, and these were the mutual, you can say, the objectives that they all would share. So Scandinavian drama plays very important role in it, and the writer that we are discussing now, Ibsen, who was the very first writer we discussed in our course outline, was basically a Scandinavian writer. And Henrik Ibsen writes, and I quote, "The state is the curse of the individual." Now see how Ibsen is distributing responsibilities. He is not only blaming the government or the authorities or the decision makers for all the chaos and disturbance in the society. He finds each individual equally responsible for it. So he says that the state is, the present state of the state is the curse of the individual. How has the national strength of Persia been purchased? By the sinking of the individual in a political and geographical formula? The state must go. The state must surrender. That will be a revolution which will find me on its side. So he was in the favor of revolution. He was in the favor of the state letting go, which is not able to take care of human rights. Undermine the idea of the state, set up in its place spontaneous action, and the idea that spiritual relationship is the only thing that makes for unity. So, taking people out of the chaos they are in and putting them on the way which potentially could lead them towards a peaceful life and peaceful living. And you will start the elements of a liberty which will be something worth possessing. Now, liberty here is used not only in its literal meaning. Liberty is individual's liberty, liberty of thinking, liberty of feeling, liberty of conveying, and liberty of articulating. So basically, liberty here is used as quite an, you can say, in its broader meanings, where it canvasses human life, and it basically projects Ibsen's philosophy of human life and human destiny and a peaceful society. Okay, so Ibsen's works, if we talk about it, and if we see how it has been seen by different people, different great writers of their times, like by Shakespeare, by George Bernard Shaw, by E.M. Forster, it will let us understand how Ibsen's writings are ranked, how they are perceived, how they are observed, as well as we know Ibsen as a social reformer, how he has been taken by the people of his own field. All of Ibsen is visionary drama. His mastery of inwardness is second only to Shakespeare's Harold Bloom. So Harold Bloom says and agrees to it that Henrik Ibsen is a visionary drama writer. He has a vision. He does not write drama just for the sake of writing or just for the sake of producing a genre of literature. His drama writing has a purpose behind, and this purpose primarily is to aware human being and to prepare them for reconstruction and rehabilitation of a society that is doomed. And he says that his mastery of art is basically that he looks deep inside human soul, human nature. He does not only talks about the surface level reality, he digs deep inside human consciousness and into unconsciousness and talks about those phenomena which are usually disguised. So his inwardness into human nature is not only his mastery, he is skillful in this art and is second only to Shakespeare, who is known the father of this art. This was by Harold Bloom. Now, George Bernard Shaw says that had the gospel of Ibsen been understood and heeded, these 15 millions might have been alive now. Discussing the loss of life during World War I, George Bernard Shaw throws light over Ibsen's visionary writings and says that his writings are no less than words of gospel, and if his writings would have been understood by the decision makers and the laymen, and were given enough and the due respect and the due importance, then the fair chance was of saving the lives of 15 million people who lost their life in World War I. So, what E.M. Forster says about Ibsen's work is, his characters may hate one another or be happy together, but they will generate nobility or charm. So now E.M. Forster draws our attention towards the characterization that Ibsen uses in his work to color his writings. Since these dramas are reflective in nature and they mirror society. Society is made of people, and people are basically different kind of mentalities, different kind of minds behind a society. So what Ibsen tries to do here, he's trying to draw all possible types of kinds of personality in his dramas, so to construct different situations that human beings confront in their lives. And since these characters are representing a particular era, so they are presenting some particular trait, and these traits are whether they are into love for each other or they possess hatred. However, E.M. Forster says that although his characters may hate one another or be happy together, however, what they the vision embedded in these characterization is that they will eventually generate nobility or charm to convey to the people of the society. So this makes me take you to visit the characters in Ibsen's Doll House, that is known one of his best plays of the time, to take you visit and see what kind of characterization he has used in this drama. Basically, you can consider this characterization a kind of specimen of his writings, a kind of representation of this writing, since this drama is considered best of his dramas. Well, Nora Tyrwald is the protagonist of Ibsen's drama, The Doll's House. And protagonist being women has a meaning attached, and I am positive that by now you'll be able to understand what it means, what kind of approach the writer would have used, and writer has a feministic approach attached to his writing. So the Nora, she is the protagonist of the play and the wife of Torvald Helmer. Torvald Helmer somehow plays the role of the antagonist in the story. So it's a playful, naive child who lacks knowledge of the world outside her home. Who is the playful, naive child? It's Nora. And this is not we who say that she's a playful, naive child. This is how she is perceived by Darwold. She is perceived by male society. She is perceived by society where the power of taking a decision and making a decision and authority is given to male members of the society, where women is considered a playful, naive child who lacks knowledge of the world outside. So this is the representation of that kind of male chauvinistic society that Ibsen presented in his drama. Nora, not as innocent or happy as she appears. The deception of appearances. Things are not, appearances are deceptive. That is what Ibsen wanted to show here. And he attached this very phenomenon with the female perception of society. And he says that although she looks very innocent and happy, however, she is not. In the end, she finds her position in her marriage. The institution of marriage is another major concern of this drama writer. He says that with increasing clarity and finds the strength to free herself from her oppressive situation. So, women's oppression, they are oppressed by male members of the society. The institute of marriage, increasing clarity means that they learn through their experiences. They need to learn through their experiences, and once they learn, they have to collect strength to free themselves. It's not the freedom, literal freedom that he talks about here, not only the literal freedom. He talks about freedom of vision, freedom of thinking, freedom of behaving, freedom of possessing respect, respecting yourself and asking for your respect, giving your thoughts words. So you see that all of these characteristics that primarily relate to Nora in her character in Ibsen's drama, The Doll's House, are basically representing his visionary thoughts about women of that era, and this is how he would bring his thoughts in front. So, talking about Torvald Helmer, what kind of character Torvald Helmer is? Torvald Helmer is presenting an antagonist in the story, and he is Nora's husband. So now if you are understanding this character, if you study this character, we may get to know what Ibsen wanted to present about the male members of the society, particularly male members who are involved and part of the marriage institution and possess the responsibility of a husband. And of course, Torvald is Nora's husband in the play. Torvald delights in his new position at the bank, just as he delights in his position of authority as a husband. The significance of money. Money definitely would have been a problem in that time because it's a time of total destruction. So in this time, the economy collapsed. Money was a concern at that time, and men would want to enjoy money, would want to possess money. They would want to possess money and would like to enjoy as they would like to possess their wives and enjoy their authority. So see what kind of parallelism Ibsen is drawing between men possessing their authority over women, men possessing their authority of position, power and money. He treats Nora like a child in a manner that is both kind and patronizing. Since women is perceived as a childlike figure who lacks knowledge, so Nora is treated in manners not only as a child but as patronizing, as after marriage Nora is taken the custody from her father and gets into the custody of her husband. He does not view Nora as an equal, but rather as a plaything or doll, or be teased and admired. So, women is considered, perceived, and in fact, and they would have experienced a kind of status where they are not considered equally useful members of society who possess equal strength as well as equal responsibility to run a household. They are considered, particularly by men, as an object of pleasure that can help them release their stress, that can help them feel happiness, share happiness, and that can also be object of their catharsis. If they are not feeling well, they can tease this object very well because they own it, they possess it. They would admire it when men would feel. They would disgrace them whenever they would like. So the characterization of Nora and the characterization of the relationship of a husband and wife is so beautifully described, and it so beautifully mirrors the kind of life of that time, that this play is primarily important and famous for this very aspect attached to it. So in general, Torvald is overly concerned with his place and status in society. Again, that status consciousness and men's lust for position, power, and possession. And he allows his emotions to be swayed heavily by the prospects of society's respect and the fear of society's scorn. So the basic concept is of appearances. How appearances are, the importance and significance of appearance as it is perceived by the members of the society is affecting the units of family. And at the same point, Ibsen draws our attention towards this phenomena that these appearances are deceptive. So if a family unit is losing its strength due to an abstraction, due to a deception, now what kind of worth you can give to such phenomena, or you can attach with such phenomena. So this was about the male members of the society, and Torvald Helmer is one of the symbolic characters of the same aspect. Now Krogstad. Krogstad is another male representation of the same society. He is a lawyer who wants to possess power again. He went to school with Torvald and holds a subordinate position at Torvald's bank. Now he is a kind of character who belongs to middle class, who is self-made, who would want to put effort into in acquiring and possessing power and position, and he's a character who is a contradiction to whom? Though his bad deeds seem to stem from a desire to protect his children from scorn, he is perfectly willing to use unethical tactics to achieve his goals. Now, it's a kind of middle class morality now that Ibsen is drawing our attention to. He's not talking about the conventional characters who are either very good or are very bad. He's talking about the real characters who can be good and bad at the same time. However, one needs to understand what are the reasons behind which would make them so. He says that he's a character who keeps contradictions within. Though his bad deeds, he says that he has done bad in his life. However, his bad has a genuine noble reason behind, and the reason was protection of his family. So he shows that there are men like Torvald who does not care about their family, who would like to not if you recall, he would not realize that if his wife has taken loan from the bank, that loan has been taken to save his life and his family, and his wife has been taking care of his children all her life. So he would just not consider any of this and would tell her to leave the house and stop taking care of his children, just for the sake that she has made him embarrassed in front of people. However, he talks about Ibsen talks about Krogstad and says that he has committed some sins, but however, if we look into these sins, we will get to know that they are generated out of noble thoughts. He is preferably willing to use unethical tactics to achieve his goals. He may have been an ethical person, however, when he is not able to achieve his goals, he has become unethical. And now Ibsen is drawing a kind of situation in front of you to see and decide. One is a standard ethical and one is a standard unethical act. However, in a given situation, how will you define something ethical or something unethical? His willingness to allow Nora to suffer is despicable, but his claim to feel sympathy for her and the hard circumstances of his own life compel us to sympathize with him to some degree. And I hope that you definitely understand this very aspect. So again, it's a contradiction. He's being rude to her, he's sympathizing with her. He's pushing her into committing suicide, then he's saving her from committing suicide. He is threatening her, he is sympathizing with her. So that is how his contradiction within goes along with his actions. Dr. Rank is another male representation of the society. He is shown as Torvald's, the antagonist, best friend. Dr. Rank stands out as the one character in the play who is by and large unconcerned with what others think of him. Now he is a contradiction, altogether a different, another extreme of Torvald. Torvald, what he's all concerned about, what people think about him, how society perceives him, how society takes him. And Dr. Rank is the one who would take it as the last thing to consider in his life. He is also notable for his stoic acceptance of his fate. Now we see that Torvald is not ready to accept this thing, that if his wife has committed a sin of taking loan without his permission, if it's such a big sin, he is not able to accept it because he cannot fight his own pre-settled notions. He is not able to fight his beliefs, his own beliefs. However, we find that Dr. Rank is a kind of person who is very flexible in his belief. No matter how cruel fate has been to him, he is able to, accept it. He has been able to reconcile with it. He is able to admit it, and he is able to go along with it. Unlike Torvald and Nora, Dr. Rank admits to the diseased nature of his life. For the most part, he avoids talking to Torvald about his imminent death out of respect for Torvald's distaste for the ugliness. Now, this is very interesting. Torvald is a person who has a wife who has given all her life to love Torvald and protect Torvald and his family, his life, his health, his respect, his status in the society, so on and so forth. However, when Torvald comes into himself, he does not care a word about Nora, and he says all what he wants, no matter how hurting, how ugly he articulates. However, we see Dr. Rank, who is not able to disclose the very genuine pain of his life, that is his disease, to his very close friend, just for for the sake that his utterances, which are basically revealing the pain of his life, his disease, may not hurt Torbert's feeling, because he does not like to talk about the ugliness of life. He wants to see everything beautiful, perfect, and full of joy and pleasure. So we see Dr. Rank as the third representation of male society. So we have three-dimensional view so far. We see Torvald, we see Krogstad, and we see Dr. Rank. So far we have been able to perceive the male members of the society with this three-dimensional mirror that Ibsen provides us. And Mrs. Lind, another female representation after Nora. Mrs. Lind is Nora's childhood friend. We see that Christine Lind is a practical, down-to-earth woman, and her sensible worldview highlights Nora's somewhat childlike outlook on life. However, how childlike Nora is again a question. Mrs. Lind's account of her life of poverty underscores the privileged nature of the life that Nora leads. We also learn that Mrs. Lind took responsibility for her sick parent, whereas Nora abandoned her father when he was ill. This is the second view of the female representation of society. Mrs. Lind is from a middle class. She has taken responsibility of her parents and of her family without her husband, and she's the one who is very down to earth. And since she has been into misery, she has been into hardships, she has a very sensible and wise worldview regarding the world outside. That is a contradiction to Nora's character, because all the time she has been possessed by male members. At one time this is his father, and at the other time at one time this is her father, and the other time this is her husband. And we see that she has this, despite the fact that she has been living a miserable life, she had this courage to take up the responsibility of her sick parents. However, Nora, she abandoned her father who was sick. So this is the second look at the female representation of the society. And the third can be Anne Mary, who is the Helmer's nanny. Though Ibsen doesn't fully develop her character in the play, Anne Mary seems to be a kindly woman who has genuine affection for Nora. She is a symbol of sacrifice. How? She had to give up her own daughter in order to take the nursing job offered by Nora's father. Again, middle-class woman who has led her life in misery of sacrificing her own child to take care of Helmer's children, and Nora is one of them. Thus, she shares with Nora and Mrs. Lind the act of sacrificing her own happiness out of economic necessity. So we see altogether women here is represented as one character who sacrifices to make, sacrifices to construct, sacrifices to build up, sacrifices to take care of, sacrifices to maintain life. And how these sacrifices are perceived by male member, rather ignored, and they go unacknowledged, is the phenomenon that has been highlighted by these, I would say, windows that Ibsen opens up in front of us. You see how he gives us a 3D view, three-dimensional view of the society by showing three men and three women opposite to each other, and how he's letting us understand what kind of different people are existing in the time that he is capturing as well as representing. I will skip Nora's father because although he is one of the characters, however, his character does not add into the characterization we are discussing right now. Although his character is important to understand as far as the understanding and comprehension of the drama is concerned. Now, moving back to one thing that we were discussing, Ibsen's social rehabilitation. Ibsen is a visionary writer. His writings are concerning social reforms. Ibsen consistently strove to uproot every stone of our social structure. He thundered his fiery indictment against the four cardinal sins of modern society. So all of Ibsen's dramas, all of his writing is basically writing for the sake of human reconstruction, society's reconstruction and rehabilitation, social rehabilitation. So if we have a broader look of his work and try to quickly categorize all the sins that he talks about, the social evils, we can categorize them into four major categories, four major sections that he talks about throughout his writings. And these can be the lie inherent in our social arrangements. He says human beings are naturally liars, not lawyer, they are liars. They lie for different reasons. Sometimes these reasons are genuine and noble. Sometimes these reasons are made up and abhorrible. Sometimes these reasons are to connect people and families and societies. Sometimes these reasons are to disconnect these aspects of life. So, however, but the fact is that lie stands there as a fact of human life and human nature. We lie to each other. Let's accept it. However, we should try not to lie to each other in order to add into breakups. If at all a lie has to be there, a lie has to exist, this lie can be for the sake of humanity. It should not be exercised against humanity. And when he says when it is used for the sake of humanity, it has to be understood and acknowledged instead of punished. Because here he talks about the punishments of Nora. The Nora, for the lie she shared with she shares with the audience, with the readers, that the sin that she commits in order to save her husband's life. However, she cracks it with her best friend, and then she is blackmailed by another male member of the society. So all the story revolves around a lie that was genuinely noble in its nature. And the second sin that Ibsen talks about is the sacrifice and duty. Although sacrifice and duty, if we take these acts and we debate on it, they are quite desirable characteristics of one's personality. However, at times they add into misery of life. Like Nora sacrificed in order to fulfill her responsibility and duty towards her family and her husband, for that matter. However, her sacrifice is not acknowledged, and what happens as a consequence that she has to leave her family. So the act of sacrifice, the act of being dutiful has to have limits, has to have tracks and roots. And since all these four sins are interconnected, we have to see where are the margins to draw. The twin curses that fetter the spirit of men. We see that men here had curses, several types of curses. However, one evil that Ibsen shares in in length and depth with us is that having a crush over women, having his, liking two women at the same time, falling in love with two women at the same time. So again, it's like disbalancing the nature's rule, disbalancing a family as a unit. Then the narrow-mindedness and pettiness of provincialism. Human beings, they indulge into petty issues, and they tend to be on purpose, consciously or unconsciously, narrow-minded when it comes to understand the acts of other human beings. So this is what he calls a sin in society, because this produces unjust attitudes that again cause disbalance in society. So Ibsen's work, if we can understand in a few words by Mrs. Elving, she says, so pitifully afraid of the light. These are very deep words. So a general overview of the dollhouse, what we have done in it, what we have covered so far. We started with the Scandinavian drama and the role of this drama in modern drama. And we discussed about the 4 cardinal sins of modern society in length. And we connected this idea with Ibsen's work, and we tried to understand how Ibsen is trying to involve these aspects into his writing to reconstruct society and draw our attention towards the evil of the society. Then we talked about themes and structures in the doll's house. We had a plot overview, we discussed a summary, and we talked about the characters and characterization. We also had analysis of major characters that let us understand and comprehend the story in detail. We had a critical analysis of characters, which included Torvald Helmer, Krogstad, Dr. Rank, Mrs. Christine Lind. Then we also had thematic analysis of the play, which definitely include 3 major themes of the play: the sacrificial role of, rather 4 I would say, the sacrificial role of women, parental obligations, the unreliability of appearances, and the definition of freedom. And we also discussed the use of symbols, motifs in the play that primarily includes the use of letters. The symbols, it's quite a symbolic play in its nature, because there are so many symbols used in the play: the Christmas tree, skylark, toys, New Year, door, macarons, title. All of these are adding into our understanding. We had critical discussion about social attitudes toward money, gender-related attitudes in relationships, and we also discussed if we have character development during the play due to the experiences these characters go through. And we also tried to analyze if Ibsen's dollhouse is another return to his favorite subject, that is the social duty and the social lie and duty. And we tried to substantiate our understanding by picking up dialogues and text from these dramas, and we discussed those dialogues in detail as well. Now I'll quickly go through Ibsen's vision, although I have discussed and touched upon this topic. However, we'll discuss his philosophy, the major themes that he involves into his writing, and particularly the themes that he has involved in A Doll's House. We already discussed that Ibsen's vision of marriage is his focus in this drama, and the Doll's House as a picture of his vision about the institution of marriage. Again, the nature of social criticism and life's realism are some of his concerns in the drama. Ibsen employs the themes and structures of classical tragedy while writing in prose about everyday, unexceptional people. He does not talk about exceptionals. His dramas are written in simple prose. However, they have the shared structure with classical tragedy. It also manifests Ibsen's concern for human rights in general and specifically women's rights. He is a feminist writer. So the themes that he portrays in this drama primarily include the difficulty of maintaining an individual personality, in this case a feminine personality, within the confines of a stereotyped social role, that is a male chauvinistic society. The problem is personified as Nora, the doll, strives to become a self-motivated human being in a women-denying man's world. As he once forced a female character in an early play, The Pillars of Society, to cry out, "Your society is a society of bachelor souls. The institution of marriage do not exist or cannot exist." In his notes for A Doll's House, Ibsen writes that the background of his projected drama is an exclusively masculine society, with laws written by men and with prosecutors and judges who regard feminine conduct from a masculine point of view. Well, so the four-dimensional criticism that he shows in most of his writing, and particularly in this drama, will include the sacrificial role of women, parental obligations, the unreliability of appearances, and the social lie and the duty, as I discussed. So let us go through all of them very quickly, and I will try to quickly describe them to you. So if there are any confusions left, you are able to clear them. The sacrificial role of women, definitely we have saw this 3D vision that Ibsen projects regarding taking Nora, Mrs. Lind, and the nanny in projecting in front. In A Doll's House, Ibsen paints a bleak picture of the sacrificial role held by women of all economic classes in his society. We see Nora from the upper class, we see Mrs. Lind from the middle class, and we see Nanny from a poor family background. The play's female characters exemplify Nora's assertion that even though men refuse to sacrifice their integrity, hundreds of thousands of women have. In order to support her mother and two brothers, Mrs. Lind found it necessary to abandon Krogstad, her true but penniless love, and marry a richer man. The nanny had to abandon her own child to support herself by working as Nora's nanny, Nora's caretaker. As she tells Nora, the nanny considers herself lucky to have found the job, since she was a poor girl who had been led astray. So this is how women has been sacrificing their lives, their pleasures, their freedom. Though Nora is economically advantaged in comparison to the play's other female characters, she nevertheless leads a difficult life because society dictates that Torvald be the marriage's dominant partner. Again, that male, masculine ruling society. Torvald issues decreases and condescends to Nora, and Nora must hide her loan from him because she knows Torvald could never accept the idea that his wife, his feminine partner, had helped save his life, Torvald's life, the male member of the society, the decision taker. Furthermore, she must work in secret to pay off her loan, her sacrifice, because it is illegal for a woman to obtain a loan, without her husband's permission. So the women's suppression and oppression as well. By motivating Nora's deception, the attitudes of Torvald and society leave Nora vulnerable to Krogstad's blackmail, again a male blackmailing a female member, for her sin that she commits to save her partner. Nora's abandonment of her child can also be interpreted as an act of self-sacrifice. Despite Nora's great love for her children, manifested by her interaction with them and her great fear of corrupting them, she chooses to leave them. Nora truly believes that the nanny will be a better mother and that leaving her children is in their best interest. Again, women is sacrificing her natural love, her eternal love of a mother. So the second theme is parental obligations, another very important theme. Nora, Torvald and Dr. Rank each expresses the belief that a parent is obligated to be honest and upstanding because a parent's immorality is passed on to his or her children like a disease. And this disease, passing of a disease, is literally projected in Dr. Rank's character. Dr. Rank does have a disease that is the result of his father's depravity. Dr. Rank implies that his father's immorality, his many affairs with women, led him to contract a venereal disease that he passed on to his son, causing Dr. Rank to suffer for his father's misdeeds. Torvald voices the idea that one's parents determine one's moral character when he tells Nora, "Nearly all young criminals had lying mothers." He also refuses to allow Nora to interact with their children anymore after he learns of her deceit, for fear that she will corrupt them. And the third theme, the unreliability of appearances. Over the course of A Doll's House, appearances prove to be misleading winners that mask the reality of the play's character and situations. Our first impressions of Nora, Torvald and Crockstead are all eventually undercut. Nora initially seems a silly, childlike, innocent, but as the play progresses, we see that she is intelligent, motivated, and by the play's conclusion, a strong-willed, independent thinker, and I would say an actor. Torvald, though he plays the part of the strong, benevolent husband, reveals himself to be cowardly, petty and selfish when he fears that Crockstead may expose him to society and make a scandal of him. Crockstead too reveals himself to be a much more sympathetic and merciful character than he first appears to be. The play's climax is largely a matter of resolving identity confusions. We see Crockstead as an earnest lover, Nora as an intelligent, brave woman, and Torvald as a simpering, sad, selfish man. So the instability of appearances within the Helmer's household at the play's end results from Torvald's devotion to an image at the expense of the creation of true happiness. Because Torvald craves respect from his employees, friends and wife, status and image are important to him. Any disrespect when Nora calls him petty and when Crockstead calls him by his first name, for example, angers Torvald greatly. By the end of the play, we see that Torvald's obsession with controlling his home's appearance and his repeated suppression and denial of reality have harmed his family and his happiness irreparably. And the fourth theme, the social lie and duty. It's a contrast. In A Doll's House, Ibsen returns to the subject so vital to him, the social lie and duty, his favorite subject, this time as manifesting themselves in the sacred institution of the home and in the position of women in her gilded cage, gold cage rather. Nora is the beloved, adorable wife of Torvald Helmer. He is an admirable man, however rigidly honest, of high moral ideals and passionately devoted to his wife and children. However, we see that what is the position of this devoted woman in her house? Just a kind of dictated object. Okay, so let me now quickly conclude by giving you a very quick overview of the play, and by giving you this overview, I will make you understand this connection between the social lie and the duty. So Nora is the beloved, adorable wife of Torvald Helmer. He is an admirable man, rigidly honest, of high moral ideas, and passionately devoted to his wife and children, apparently. In short, a good man and an enviable husband. Almost every mother would be proud of such a match for her daughter, and it shows in the beginning, and the later would consider herself fortunate to become the wife of such a man. Nora too considers herself fortunate. Indeed, she worships her husband, and she is very much in love with her husband and believes in him implicitly, and is sure that if ever her safety should be menaced, Torvald, her idol, her god, would perform the miracle, become his savior. When a woman loves as Nora does, nothing else matters, least of all social, legal or moral considerations. Therefore, when her husband's life is threatened, it is no effort, it is joy for Nora to forget her father's name to a note and borrow 800 kronen on it in order to take her sick husband to Italy. That is women attitude, a woman who is in love with her husband. In her eagerness to serve her husband and in perfect innocence of the legal aspect of her act, she does not give the matter much thought, except for her anxiety to shield him from any emergency that may call upon him to perform the miracle in her behalf. She works hard and saves every penny of her pin money to pay back the amount she borrowed on the forged check. So that's her sense of duty, and that's the lie that she's keeping deep inside her. Nora is light-hearted and gay, apparently without depth. Who indeed would expect depth of a doll, a squirrel, a songbird? Her purpose in life is to be happy for her husband's sake, for the sake of the children, to sing, dance and play with them, and to cheer them, to entertain them. That is ultimate goal of Nora, an ultimate goal of a woman who is living in a masculine society. Besides, is she not shielded, protected and cared for? Who then would suspect Nora of depth? But already in the opening scene, when Torvald inquires what his precious squirrel wants for a Christmas present, Nora quickly asks him for money. Is it to buy macarons or finery? In her talk with Mrs. Lynch, Nora reveals her inner self and forecasts the inevitable debellus of her doll's house. So, wanting to be versus has to be, a conflict of self, her lie and her duty. This makes her self involved in this conflict that eventually changes Nora entirely as a character. So now the development of the conflict starts here. After telling her friend how she had saved her husband, Nora says, "When Torvald gave me money for clothes and so on, I never used any bit of it, and I saved all of it to repay the debt. But it was often very hard, because letting your wishes and desires go away without, when you have money and you can buy those things that you desire for, but she knows that her duty is bigger than her desires." Deep down in the consciousness of Nora, there evidently slumbers personality and character, which could come into full bloom only through a great miracle, not the kind Nora hopes for, but a miracle just the same. Nora had borrowed the money from Niels Krogstad, a man with a shady past in the eyes of the community and of her husband too. So long as Krogstad is allowed the little breathing space Christian people grants to him who has once broken its laws, he is reasonably human. However, as soon as he feels threatened by society as well as by Torvald, he becomes unethical for his genuinely ethical reasons. Of course, you know, like everyone else, that some years ago I got into trouble, and that is how Krogstad conflict starts developing. That again gives rise to the development of the conflict in Nora's personality. Even when Nora is confronted with this awful threat that she gets from Krogstad, she does not fear for herself. Again, what she fears for is for husband's respect. But this must never be. Nora too begins a fight for life, for her husband's life and that of her children. Did not Helmer tell her that the very presence of a criminal like Krogstad poisons the children? And is she not a criminal? Well, Torvald Helmer assures her in his male conceit that early corruption generally comes from the mother's side. But of course, the father's influence may act in the some way. And this Crockstead has been poisoning his own children for years past by a life of lies and hypocrisy. That's why I call him morally ruined. So finally, Nora's beliefs are challenged. Poor Nora, who cannot understand why her daughter has no right to spare her dying father anxiety, or why a wife has no right to save her husband's life by telling only a lie for his life's sake, is surely not aware of the true character of her idol, true character of men. So, Ibsen brings forward his feministic philosophy. Is there anything more degrading to women than to live with a stranger and bear him and children? Yet the lie of the marriage institution decreases that she shall continue to do so, and the social conception of duty insists that for the sake of that lie she needs to be nothing else than a plaything, a doll, a non-entity. So that was all the discussion about Ibsen's Doll's House, A Doll's House written by Henrik Ibsen. And we discussed the theme, structures. In fact, we had an overall discussion regarding play. I hope this review session would have helped you clear your doubts if you have had any. However, I will try that in the next session I can include some of the questions that can be of your concern as far as modern drama is concerned, apart the discussion based on our second text. So this was all for today's talk. I will see you in the next lecture, lecture 30, that will be about our second drama. So we'll see you inshallah the next time. Allah Hafiz.